talk with Patrick from Mobile Raker, and I think also Gina. There's a problem with my programming, so I'll have to fix that after, but we should be able to go.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Meet the Maker. It's been a little while since we've done this, but today we have Stefan from CNC Kitchen. It is probably my favorite YouTube program. I didn't tell you this in our sort of pre-thing. It is, I actually don't watch a lot of YouTube. I don't watch a lot of content. I feel like I've had less time sort of as business grows and things like that, but it is the one thing that I will actually search in the bar to see what's new. In fact, yeah, I watched the Yuffie Make video just a few days ago. So
Appreciate that.
yeah, no, it's amazing. I'm so happy to have you here. If you guys aren't familiar, Meet the Maker is a show we do where we get an opportunity to meet people in the community, people that we look up to, makers that we may not often have the ability to just or feel like we have the ability to reach out. I know, we got back from rep festivals, and every once in a while we see people like yourself. Think I've seen you a couple times, maybe in break rooms and things like that. And the first time you're just like starstruck, you don't even want to like say anything. So this truly is about people that, it removes that barrier. It's an opportunity for you to be in front of them. We have people ask questions. Hopefully there are questions that you're able to answer, but just learn a little bit more about you and anything that they want to know. And that's what we do. We will try not to make it terribly long. We heard that you're going through some excessive heat, and I'm sure not terribly comfortable. Sitting down the whole time and all that. So whatever. I'm gonna stop talking. But go ahead. If you could introduce yourself, we could start with that.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, highly appreciate being here. I always enjoy doing things like this. I'm kind of embarrassed that I I don't know. I'm kind of doing this too rarely, but yeah. I mean, you kind of already introduced me. I'm Stefan. I run my YouTube channel called CNC Kitchen. I do. It's always hard to describe what I'm doing. I would often say I can do the things that I'm interested in and then kind of show them to an audience, which is usually 3D printing related. But yeah, I have a background in like 3D printing research and instructional analysis, and I I think kind of by accident I found this niche 7, 8 years ago, and I really enjoy what I'm doing. I really enjoy the opportunities that I'm getting, and I try to bring a bit more engineering into additive manufacturing and trying to answer the questions that I'm having myself and also dive into things that are interesting and sometimes also maybe a bit silly. So yeah, as I said, um, I come out from the aerospace industry. I used to work as an aerospace engineer for 17 years. For the last half year or almost a year now, I'm doing this full time. Like half a year ago, I renovated and built a new studio place with two other creators, Marius Honberger and Robin Reiter, and we all kind of found our happy place because now we have like this maker space area where we have all of the tools that you basically need for any project. You have like-minded people there. And yeah, I really enjoy what I'm doing. And I also, you might be able to notice that in the next couple of minutes and hours that I also sometimes talk a bit too much, especially in situations like that. Yeah. So again, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys and also trying to answer a couple of questions that come from the audience.
Awesome. And yeah, no worries. If you talk a lot more, it makes our job a heck of a lot easier. So absolutely no problem. Um, the first question that I have, because I mean, you do have a interesting channel. You obviously, um, you, you do a lot of different things. I mean, yes, a lot of them are 3D printing related, but I've always wondered how you come up with the ideas of things to do. Because it seems like it can be all over the place. They're all very interesting questions, but where do you source those questions from?
Um, I kind of already answered that in a way that the channel gives me the opportunity to answer questions that I have myself or people have been asking me. I thought, okay, that's something really interesting. It might make sense to dive a little bit deeper, or there are a couple of other people who might have the same question but do not find a proper answer to that. So it's a bit things that I'm asking myself. It's sometimes questions that I read online that I get from the audience, and sometimes also just like random stuff that pops up in my head, and I think, okay, that might make an interesting video for a wider audience because this is kind of the interesting thing, and sometimes it also kind of hurts me because when I initially started I was able to really dive deeply into like technical niche topics and just review a PLA filament or something like that, but you kind of have the problem at some point when you're growing bigger and bigger and you need to make a living from that. You need to come up with topics that might be interesting to a wider audience. Sometimes it's funny how I mean even niche topics could be interesting to a super wide audience, and you have videos where you do random stuff and like 500,000 people are watching that. But yeah, in a way, I sometimes would like to go back to even more technical, very detailed stuff that I'm also asking myself. But I kind of always have to think about what makes sense for, as I said, a wider audience. And I still think that I usually have a good feeling for topics that are interesting for my core audience, but also might be interesting to a wider audience. I don't know. You just mentioned the Eufy make a video.
Which was
So
cool,
they
by the
were
way.
approaching me, for example, and I told them, okay, it doesn't make sense for my audience to, I mean, print pretty pictures onto canvas and things like that, because I mean there are 50 other channels who do a way better job regarding that, and it's also just not interesting for me. But if you guys are okay, I would like to try to print on print plates and try to replicate these custom textured print plates that Amber Prototype does. And also, I thought about maybe printing on PCBs because I manufactured my own PCBs in the past, but you always have the problem if you do them yourself and you route them, you don't have this solder stop print on them. So just soldering on
Mhm.
them is horrible because you get bridging everywhere. So I kind of proposed it to them because these were things that interested me, and I thought, okay, that might be also something for interesting for a wider audience. And might be in that niche where I can do a bit of research, a bit of tinkering, and just to do something out of the ordinary. I think my audience expects. And even though the video didn't perform super well, I really enjoyed the process itself. And yeah, I think it's interesting for the 3D printing core audience who would like to have their own custom plate, but you also have like this wider audience that I don't know might be doing stupid TikTok videos of printer time lapses or whatnot.
Guilty.
And yeah, as I said, I really enjoy that I get these opportunities because when do you get the opportunity to pay to play around with expensive equipment and in the end even get paid for that by views, by a sponsor or something like that? It's kind of a dream job I sometimes feel that I have.
Yeah. No, totally. One of the things that a lot of your videos have that I really appreciate and that Yuffie make is a good one as well. I assume they sent you the video, the product. I may have skipped through the part where you say whether or not it was provided or what have you. But it's not like, hey, I took this UV printer, I took this mug that they gave me, and I sort of went through the setup quick start steps, which a customer someone may actually want to do that. But the steps of going through and embossing the plate and printing on it and doing torture tests on it and different heights and gradients and colors and all of those things, that's a pretty in-depth analysis and review of a particular use case. So
Yeah.
you get a full view. I felt like when you first started, I'm like, man, I'm gonna buy one of these Eufy make things, and I'm totally gonna do this because it looks awesome. And I left thinking that I could still do that. Like there's still a use case for it, but you kind of went through all of the shortcomings of that method and why, if my use case is to you know, put this on every single one of my prints for the end of time, especially with high tech materials or whatever, I should just call Ember Prototypes and have them make me one. Um, you know, it's really refreshing. And I think for people like me at least that again have limited time, if I'm watching content, I want to learn something and I want to know that the creator put in quite a bit of effort to get that content created. And I'm going to follow up with a question. How long does a video like that take you usually? Yeah.
Um, so I try to work on a 2 week schedule. Now with like the family here growing and I sometimes just taking it a little bit slower. I sometimes go into like a 3 week schedule or something like that. But typically 2 weeks for a video, and that usually means like one full week doing the project, and then I start with scripting the video. I do the voiceover, and then I edit everything. And then usually, like on Wednesdays, Thursdays, the kind of the rough cut needs to go to the brand or to the sponsor, that they can say, okay, that the part where I talk about, I don't know, Squarespace or something like that is fine. And then Saturday is usually the release date. And this is something that I try to keep. I sometimes would enjoy working longer on projects, but the thing is, I'm a huge procrastinator. So if I don't have the pressure, I just work less or do things that might not be, I mean, in a business sense, good. I don't know, help my wife more, clean up the house or things like that. So having a sponsor on the video, and having this pressure that I have kind of a deadline where I need to get the video out is helping me get stuff done and finished. It's sometimes a bit torturing myself, and I know that many don't like the sponsor, the baked-in sponsor callouts. But for me, it's a way to just produce, if very efficiently produce content. Because as I said, otherwise it would take me like twice the amount of time, but the end results wouldn't necessarily be better.
So it's a little bit of pressure to like get this thing going.
Totally, totally. Because you can imagine how focused I can be Fridays and Saturdays if I need to release a video on Saturday. I can work like 10 hours straight just focusing on that one thing, whereas otherwise at the beginning of the week I maybe do like, yeah, let's start with it for half an hour, then I do something totally different, then I don't know, go through emails and stuff like that. But like Friday and Saturday before the video is released, I'm so like laser focused on just finishing the stuff because I have the pressure that this needs to be out and this needs to be good, and I just need to get that done. And otherwise, I have a real big problem focusing on the things that are important. I'm a procrastinator, unfortunately. And as I said, it's a bit of self-torture, but having sponsors on the video and these deadlines just helps me get things done.
Yeah, and you've been and you mentioned that sort of you've moved into a new studio, you're doing this full time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started and what you were doing before you started doing content?
So I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. Then I worked as a stress engineer on aircraft landing gear for a few years. Noticed that I really enjoy that work. Then I did a master's in numerical analysis. Continued working on basically the finite element analysis on aircraft landing gear for several years more. And then at some point, I started a bit of tinkering. I built myself a CNC router. I got into drone flying. That was all probably 2014, 2015, so around 10 years ago. And then within our company, there was a unit created which focused on metal additive manufacturing. And the guy who started that kind of got told by somebody else, hey, there's another guy in another department who really likes to tinker and is passionate in optimization and even enjoys getting his hands dirty as well. And at that point, I started like working 50-50 in our research department. So we got our own metal 3D printer. We started printing our first parts and stuff like that, and did all the research around how to get the material printed properly, how to certify the process for aerospace and things like that. And I think after like 2 years or something like that, I transitioned to do that like full time. And then for like the next 8 years, I was basically like a full time metal additive manufacturing research engineer there. But I think like after 1 or 2 years, I started creating my YouTube channel. And the reason for that was basically, so I got my first 3D printer. I used to be a stress engineer on aircraft landing gear. And when you do stress analysis on landing gears, you get like data sheets for your steels and your titanium and aluminum. And I got into 3D printing, and I noticed that like there aren't any proper data sheets for like the 3D printing materials that we use. I didn't found any proper research papers on how is the strength different in different printing orientations and with different print settings and things like that. And I was really unsatisfied with what I found in academic papers. And I sometimes noticed that these academic papers were just so horribly written by people who have no clue how to 3D print, because they basically got assigned that job. They had their Ultimaker there or their MakerBot, printed a couple of parts, but they didn't have a passion for additive manufacturing. So they just did stupid decisions nobody would do in their right mind who knows how to 3D print. So I said, okay, screw this. I gonna build myself a tensile testing machine. So build a tensile testing machine out of wood, because basically that was the material I was very capable of working with. Then did the first tests, and I've always been someone who enjoyed YouTube and just video as a medium for learning stuff. So I thought, okay, maybe there's somebody else interested in like the results that I'm getting. So I started putting out my first videos about strength testing materials and just working on my Prusa printer. And I I think it's kind of interesting. I really I remember the first video I put out. It was how to put a silicone sock on the
Searching now.
Prusa Mark II. And I think I released it at night, just got to bed, and the next day it had like 300 views or something like that. And I was really blown away by just the feedback that I got. And that fueled me for like months and years on in just coming up with new stuff, producing videos and things like that. The kind of good thing at that point was that like my wife and I, we didn't have kids at that point. She was working
have a lot
full
of
time
time.
and also usually worked at the weekends. So when I came home from work, I continued working on my YouTube stuff. During the weekends, I worked on my YouTube stuff. So I put seriously a ton of effort into that, which helped me grow and also kind of understand the medium. And then I think in 2019, when I went to Murph the first time, this was like surreal for me. I think at that point I had like at least I had 80,000 subscribers or something like that. But then I was in Goshen, Indiana, in the middle of nowhere, where you have all these horse carriages on the street, and you go into a venue hall, and like the first guy you're meeting there is like, "Hey, you're Stefan," and I was just, it was seriously surreal that I get into a venue with thousands of people and kind of everyone knows you, and this seriously left like a lasting impression on me, and I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed talking to all of the people there, and it just showed me, okay, this is just like an amazing community, and the work that I do seems to benefit others. I can do something good. I can make a bit of side money with that. Yeah. And then like COVID hit and everyone was at home and started 3D printing and stuff like that. So, and we had,
Blew up.
so, and the thing in Germany was that many companies, we didn't fully shut down, but instead of 5 days a week, I only worked 2 days a week. So I had,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And I still was like paid for 4 days a week or something like that. So I had still kind of a good income from that. But I was at home all day. I had a ton of time. So I just increased creating content, and the content worked. People enjoyed it and things like that. And I mean, now I'm here and now I can do that full time, which is kind of
Right.
nice. Maybe,
Somebody's
sorry.
I'm sorry, somebody's asked a minute ago, if money wasn't an issue to you, what would you like to research and work on? Money is no issue.
It's an interesting question. I mean, I really have a passion in additive manufacturing research. So I like the things that I do these days. If money wasn't an issue, I would love to get like proper test equipment. I would like to get staff to do some of the boring work and just try to figure out things, try to improve materials for additive manufacturing, try to show what applications for additive manufacturing there are and where you shouldn't use additive manufacturing. I think this is something people rarely talk about, but there are so many opportunities, and I think it often just lacks the education. And I've seen that many times in my professional life, even though I mean this is my job now. It's kind of my professional life as well. But when I was still at my old company, I'm very familiar with additive manufacturing, but if I talk to other engineers in our department, many of them didn't even know how additive manufacturing, even filament-based additive manufacturing, really work, what you can do with it and what you can't do with it. And as I said, I think education is a key factor to help get additive manufacturing into even more hands and also show the applications where it has benefits and where it also has its limits. Because I mean, like 10 years ago, additive 3D printing was the big hype. Everyone said, okay, 3D printing is going to be the new disruptive technology. We're going to 3D print everything in 10 years. It's not like that anymore, but I kind of feel that sometimes people think more and more of 3D printing like just printing toys, just printing like flexi dragons and things like that. And we need to kind of get out of the pit, out of that pit, and show these days getting into additive manufacturing is so easy. And if you just know the basic things, you can do such tremendous things with that technology. And it's not only flexi dragons, it's really
Yep.
physical products. Use that for your small product business. Even like medium run production things are possible with additive manufacturing these days. You just need to know how the machines are, how to design parts for additive manufacturing, and how to choose the right material.
Yeah, definitely one of the things, obviously, COVID, major change. Bamboo printers come out, I don't know, 4 years ago now, 3 years ago, something like that. Um, things change. We are seeing a bunch of the dragons and the toys and stuff. And um, I don't know. I'm not sure anything's necessarily wrong with that. I mean, I think that one thing that you can say is people now have a tool, and hopefully they get to a point where there's now something that they can now use this tool for that's beyond that, those
Yeah.
dragons and things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a new world in 3D
But this is
printing.
something that was I was asking myself as well, because like you guys are kind of very focused on the printer being the project and not
Yeah.
necessarily the printer being the tool in the end. How did you guys see a change in your customer base, the amount of customers and who the customers are over the last 3 years, where we came from, okay, if you want to get a really good performing machine, build a Voron, a fast and good performing machines. And these days, you can get kind of the same amount of quality and reliability from like off the shelf machines, which is on the one hand, if you want to use 3D printing as a tool, amazing, but especially for the Voron project or for, I mean, shops and sellers like you guys
Yeah.
also poses kind of a challenge, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's the market has certainly changed. We've seen what I would call, and it hasn't been as extreme as if you asked me 6 months, a year ago, I would have been like, oh man, a lot of stuff is happening. I'm having suppliers asking us how our business is doing because they're worried about, you know,
Mhm.
their customers and things like that. We've seen some 3D printing retailers go out of business that are in the sort of DIY space, both in Europe and in the US. I mean, I think that's a thing. Uh, um, for us, we're still experiencing growth. I think that, everybody that gets a 3D printer, there's accessories, and everybody's still going to want to. There's a group of people, no matter if they're using the printer as the cool thing or they are cool stuff that they can make. There's always going to be the people that, just like people that get cars and they want to put a exhaust on it or something, or an intake or whatever. There's people that are going to want to tinker. So I think we've seen that base grow, even though maybe the proportion of people that are doing that is shrunk.
Yeah.
But the overall number is still growing. Filament, obviously, and all those things are using quite a bit more of that. Yeah, I mean, I think I do think there are still two markets, and there's people that now enjoy both. I have printers that I
Yeah.
want that just I want to work all the time, and then there's every once in a while I just want to do something cool. I want a project, and if the printer can be my project, then I make that printer my project. So I kind of see this. There's almost a dichotomy in the market,
Yeah.
and I think both sides are kind of living harmoniously. One side is certainly growing quite a bit bigger. But I think there's always, some movement back and forth within that. And the market overall, I think, has been pretty good
Yeah.
for us.
I mean, one of the really impressive things for me wasn't even like half a year ago. We had 3D printers in our house for the last 8 years or even longer, but my wife never really used them or was interested in them. At some point, I showed her, okay, this is Thingiverse. If you're looking for something, just go there and let me know. And I usually just got like lists of Thingiverse links for me to print out, but I don't know. I think like as I said, half a year ago, I just said, okay, screw this. There's no an X1 in our basement. Here's the Bamboo Handy app. Just do it yourself.
Yeah.
And ever since then, she's just happily printing out her own stuff. And this
That is
just
awesome.
shows me she is, I wouldn't say she is not tech savvy. She's good with computers, but it if I would have needed to show her, hey, how to download a slicer, how to turn on a printer, how to properly connect it, and things like that, it would just be something I think would have been too much for her to just get in. But with the ease of usability of these machines these days, I really enjoy seeing her use a 3D printer as a tool. She has ideas. She can print them out, and it's not just flexi dragons. Of course, it's like flower pots, but it's also like holders for stuff and things like that. And at some point, maybe she even gets into a bit of CAD and can do her own designs, just simply because the entry barrier has been becoming so low. So of course, there are maybe less of the like portion of whole 3D printers being war on machines, but the machines being cheap and easily accessible just
Yeah.
grew the 3D printing community tremendously. And of course, they need filament, they need spare parts, they need tools and things like that. And this
Yeah.
is something where there's still a niche where retailers and resellers and shops like that can grow and make a business out of it. And as I said, I think one of the very important things for me is always education. How can you show those who don't have a ton of clue about this technology how to choose the right material, and how to do proper maintenance, what tools do you need for maintenance, how to rework your parts and things like that. And if you then can also cater to that market and say, okay, we have all of the tools available, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
to
think,
sort of,
go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
no, I was going to kind of build on what Daniel was talking about. We have a retail space at our facility, and especially within the last couple months, we've had a number of people come in that don't have a 3D printer and then say, I want to build a Voron. Okay, so how much 3D printing experience do you have? And they'll say, none, but I've heard these are really good and I want one. And to, in talking with the customer, I always try and put out there, like, even if you feel that you are mechanically and electronically skilled enough to build a Voron, you don't know anything about 3D printing. So if you build a Voron and you're having problems with something as simple as, adhesion, or, oh, well, I print and like half the print is fine and the other half is wonky. So if you don't know anything about 3D printing, then you don't know whether that's a slicing problem, a Z offset problem, or did you do something incorrect? Is your gantry racked? What's going on? So it's great to have options that, the what I call the appliance printers that you just take out of the box and they work. You learn about 3D printing, and when you can get your prints on that machine dialed in, now's the time that you can start thinking about something like a Voron, because when you have problems, you can go, oh, well, I know for PLA, this is the right amount of squish, but my first layer is still off. What do I need to look at? Plus, the very famous idea of, the number of printers that you need to have is n+1. If you build a Voron and then you break something, it's nice to have a printer that you don't mess with to print your replacement parts. So, and there are a number of really capable machines out there, whether it's one of the higher end bamboos that you can print, higher temp materials like ABS or ASA, or, the Cheedy +4s have been really popular. That's a great kind of printer to just have for when you really need it. So then you can go and you can play with your Voron.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
totally.
I mean, when I got into 3D printing, I bought myself a Mendel 90 kit that was
Yeah.
9 or 10 years ago, and I have never used a 3D printer. I have, I think, only seen one like live in action once.
There can only be
And
one working.
I also could get it working. So, and I mean, building a Voron 2.4 or a Trident with if you get the parts printed and with a good manual, it's a project, but if you know how if you know some basic mechanical and electrical skills, it's not that hard anymore. And it's fun to do because you know how the machine works in the end, and you kind of give the machine a soul. The appliance printers, you buy them, you put them on a shelf, they seem to work, but you don't feel that affection to the
Yeah.
machine. And I think I think this always was a kind of thing which just really helped these DIY printer projects, that the printers that you built, that the printer where you chose the colors you wanted to have, you selected all the mods you wanted to get into that thing. It was yours. You were happy about it. You were proud about it. So it's a totally different feeling using using these machines than just have an appliance machine. It might not be important to many, but I think to the tech enthusiasts, they enjoy that. They want to know how things work and don't just use the machine. And in the end, you still have a working machine. Of course, usually if you build one of these machines, you will keep modding it and modding it and modding it. But that's part of the game.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And the other thing is with these, if you build your machine, especially if it's from an open source project where they're using off the shelf components, I mean, your machine doesn't have an end of life. There's not going to be the time where, hey, this is no longer available in the store, see you later, that you are seeing, with any printer that is a commercial printer. One thing certainly, I think Bamboo and these other places have done, I mean, they've made printing mainstream. We went to a local fair a few years ago. I remember our first time we're going there. I mean, we have 3D printers up there printing little toys and stuff like that. I mean, you have people coming up and I mean, it's like to them, this is a spaceship. Like, like this just something incredible. I've never seen one of these before, all of that stuff. To now, we just did an event in a middle school class, and there's kids coming up saying how they've designed things and printed them, at either the printer at home or at school. So I mean, while printing, I think over the last, it's been a while. I mean, probably over the last 8 years has become, I would say, pretty affordable. And there was even a time where you could get, a printer for 130 bucks. You get a Creality, Ender 3 or whatever. The thing I think that's changes the experience. So while everybody could afford a Creality Ender 3, the experience wasn't quite there. And when you're talking about children that are getting into it, there's not very many hurdles that they're going to encounter that until they're like, hey, you know what? This is too hard. This is too much, unless they've got some major support behind them. And even then, my son doesn't have the attention span. He would be like, it's too much. So, by having these printers that just work, even though they are a little bit more expensive, I think the uptake that people, especially the younger generation, have with it, and their sort of the propensity for them to continue using that machine is quite a bit higher. Maybe because they
Mhm.
can do toys, they can make keychains for their friends, whatever. But all of that, I think or hope is really good. And, hopefully when they have school projects or whatever in the future, they now say, hey, I've got this tool. Can I use this tool to use it? And maybe you get more people into sort of the engineering or STEM fields that way. That's my hope.
Yeah.
We've certainly seen it with the kids that are coming in our store, kind of like Alan mentioned. We're getting a lot more people coming in talking about printing.
Yeah, definitely. This is also that something that I've seen at our school and also with my wife. I mean, when I was young, I was a bit into RC flying, and had to take you had to take a saw and files and things like that to make your parts. And it's tedious to some degree, and some might not just be good at it, or you don't have the materials that have the right strength for your application and things like that. And then you end up not doing something. You can't really finish your project, or you just don't finish your project because you don't have the proper tools. I think with additive manufacturing, and I think it is especially becoming very powerful once you get into CAD, once you can have ideas, make a digital design out of it, and then just print it out. 10 years ago, I was very capable of designing my parts. I mean, I went to university for that. But getting from that digital file to a physical part in my hand was sometimes basically impossible, because if you don't have a lathe or a mill or something like that, you're screwed. With additive manufacturing these days, you kind of push a button and a couple of hours later, you have your part. And even though it's plastic for many applications, that's totally fine, especially if you get into more advanced materials than PLA.
Yeah.
And this is something that I really enjoy, and opens up these opportunities for especially young kids or small businesses to get their ideas into a physical product way faster, or even at all.
Yeah, totally. And I think the 3D printing, I think you make a mistake, typically, it's a few hours or a day or however long to fix that mistake. You can do it again. You really have that rapid prototype ability without a lot of the waste. You're not having to, go through, try to make new molds and, do all this all over again, spending quite a bit more time and material to do it. Um, our first question from an audience person that I never asked, it is back towards YouTube stuff. So hopefully it's okay. We change gears a little bit. Um, was asking what your thoughts are on the AI features on YouTube. Do you use any of those?
I mean, I use the AI auto translation mainly because, I mean, my dad he's now retired. He never learned English at school. So he can speak or understand a bit of English, but it's just not good. So he always has a hard time understanding what I do for my job. And he's an electrician, but he basically told me many of the maker skills I have these days. And I always kind of felt bad for him not really understanding what I do. And even though the AI translation sounds horrible, it is a tool for him that he gets access to the content that I do. Um, and I mean, with several other languages that are available for this auto translate thing as well, it's kind of the same thing. Be it Japanese or Indonesian or Hindi. Many maybe don't have such a knowledge of technical English than I mean you guys in the US have or others that grew up with English. And I mean, it's optional. And if somebody doesn't understand something and is brave enough to listen to the AI translation, why not give it to them? But yeah, I know. I don't know. It for me, it still sounds pretty bad. It's not like a totally good replacement. I have my German channel, but translating a video even from English to German usually takes me like 2 days, and it's just tedious, boring work. So I don't do that for every video. That would be basically be my preferred option. I'm not sure if that was the AI feature question. If I properly answered that question, but that's what I kind of
So
understood.
so your German channel, so is the idea that the content you're making available in sort of two languages natively?
Yes, because I mean, of course, there are one of the best things that I did right away is start my channel in English because you can just cater to way more people worldwide. But there's still like 150 million German speaking people on the world. And I know from my own experience that not everyone is so good and even enjoys watching English content. So since I usually script all of my videos, I do voiceover everything. It's kind of easy because I just translate the voiceover, do the voiceover again, and shift my video clips a tiny bit around, and then I have a German video in the end. And even if it usually doesn't perform as well as the English one, I can cater to an audience that would otherwise not watch my content. But for me, it's a time problem. I usually always have too little time, and translating something and doing new description and thumbnails and everything is in the end a 2 day job. And sometimes I just don't have the time. But the idea and my preferred workflow would be to do a video in English and the next week have the same video available also in German.
Oh, that's cool. I actually wasn't aware. Obviously, I hang out mostly in the English side.
To be
Um,
honest, one of the problems is so I'm not a lot on like German shows, but I am totally not in the German speaking 3D printing bubble. So like was it
so
this
if you go to like isn't there's a big event in Frankfurt,
Yeah,
isn't there? You go there and
Form Next in Germany, for example, there are German-speaking content creators, and many of them I don't know. They might have like a seriously big audience, but I say, okay, guys, I'm really sorry, but YouTube just doesn't. I'm just not in the German-speaking bubble. So most of the content we even watch at home is English. I enjoy that. My wife's an English teacher, so it's not a problem for both of us. And even the stuff that I watch on YouTube, it's 90% English. So it just doesn't show me German videos. And I sometimes I even if I hear myself speaking German in a German video, find that kind of cringe. I don't know.
Somebody asked, you had mentioned, people getting into CAD as being like really a major step forward. One of the things that obviously has gotten much better in the last even a few months are AI models where you can describe something that you want. Do you have any thoughts on those?
Um, I don't think too much of them because I mean, I know my designs and I would have a hard time describing them in words myself. I, but I could be totally wrong there. At the moment, I see them totally as a gimmick. Or if somebody, yeah, I want to model a box that has a hole on that side with that dimension and yada yada yada. I feel it's still kind of limited. I mean, if it comes to functional parts, if we look at the generative, like artistic model space, it's already crazy what we get there. But
Yeah.
I think this is way more artistic. You don't say, okay, this hand needs to have like it's 10 millimeters long and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
So it's that specificity that you need
it's
in
exactly,
like a functional
Yeah.
design.
yeah. I mean, for me, a functional design is also always growing. You start with an idea, you model it, or you see, okay, that doesn't really fit. You change this, you change that. Then you maybe have an assembly. Maybe certain steps might be might be done in the future by specific models, but I think and hope that a lot of like the really creative mechanical engineering work is still in the hands of a talented designer. And as I said, sometimes I would have a hard feeling describing my design, but I mean I could be totally wrong because I mean just the progress that we've seen over the last three years is kind of crazy. So I
Yeah.
still
No,
recommend anyone who's interested try to learn a bit of CAD, and even if it's just um, Tinkercad.
yeah. I mean, I've done a lot. When I first started, that's all I even tried.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I did RC stuff, and you can actually do quite a few. There's quite a few things you can
Yeah.
do. But certainly, as you get more advanced, that's probably not the way to go. Vitaly is asking if there's an in-game idea for what you're doing. Do you have any cool new products that you're working on? And I did also want to talk about some of your products because that's a totally different thing than your content. But let's start
Yeah.
with Vitaly's question.
Um, of course, we want to introduce more products because I mean, one of the problems we kind of have at the moment that we are that niche heat set insert shop, and somebody really needs to come for a specific reason into our shop, and they buy heat set inserts and then leave again. They don't buy heat inserts and then, yeah, there's a nozzle and a hot end and whatever. So I don't do that product business myself. It's run by a business partner where, in close collaboration, we think about new products and get them to the market, and he's responsible for sourcing them. And we do basically design quality control together. And he also does the fulfillment and everything. He has been doing the same thing part-time as well for the last 4 years. He also quit his job last year. He actually was my boss at my normal job.
Ah,
But he quit like
Exodus.
I think 3 or 4 months earlier than I did. And we have been renovating a new warehouse over the last year, and it's finally finished now. So, I mean, during the last 6 months, there wasn't a ton of time. I had a second daughter, and he did all of the renovations and stuff like that. So it wasn't that much time for new products, but we definitely want to grow it. We currently source a second version of our insert extractor, but we have a ton of more interesting ideas that we want to get to the market, and where we really think, okay, this fits my brand, and we are able to produce them at a price and quantity where it really makes sense to get them out. And it's a bit of diversification for myself, but I think also a really interesting opportunity to make things that would otherwise not hit the market. Because I mean, there are a ton of interesting ideas around, but if you first start, well, you guys know it pretty well, but if you want to get from an idea to a physical product, it's way harder than you imagine in the beginning. And it's not just like sourcing parts, it's quality control, it's suppliers, it's laws and regulations and yada yada yada. It's a ton of stuff. But yeah,
Yeah. In
so
Germany, it's even crazier. We
yeah, it sometimes is. So I think we still ship 60-70% to the US because that's also where like my main customer base is, which is kind of crazy. But DHL, at least for us, we have pretty good shipping rates to the US, especially if it just comes to like small packages with, for example, our heat set inserts. We can get them
yeah.
really cheaply and also pass that along to our customers. But yeah, so we want to get like other types of heat set inserts. So currently we have the heat set inserts and we have torque screws because funny
Mhm.
thing, when I built my first War on Zero, the biggest pain point for me was these M2 and
Yeah.
M2.5 hex head screws. I was
Yeah.
stripping them. I was stripping all of them. It was just a
Hmm.
it was just a pain. And then at some
Yeah.
point I said, okay, and the problem was I didn't find a proper supplier for small or just general cap head torque screws in Germany. So I said, okay, Alex, screw this. We need to sell torque screws from M2 all the way to, I think, M10, something like that, because hex head screws are just a pain to use. And why is not everyone using torque screws? So yeah, we have like machine screws, but I will also want to get into like self-tapping screws. If you have a connection, you only want to screw together once. But then we also have ideas for like new accessories for 3D printing. We now have our first made in Germany product, which is a stupidly simple
That's
nozzle
cool.
brush made oh just a like a brass nozzle brush and things like that. We are slowly growing. We also noticed that if you want to grow, you need a ton of money, and since we don't have any investors and we also like don't swim in money, we need to sell things and then use that money to source new products. So it's slowly but steadily growing.
Well, that's awesome. I hope it continues to grow. It's amazing. I mean, I know those M2 screws that don't even use like this. I think they use like 1.3 millimeter or something like that. Keys that aren't like on standard like
Yeah,
hex
it's
tools,
horrible.
and it's yeah, no, totally. And yeah, I mean, your heat set stuff has been awesome. I hope that, we see some more growth. I know even brushes, that was a thing where, you mentioned quality control. I mean, we threw away an entire batch because, you buy something, you're like, hey, what's the best price you can give me on 1,000 of these, these brushes? And you find a really good deal, and then you find out, oh, they're really steel. Like you put a magnet to them, and they're like, they're like, this is gonna mess some people's day up. So throw that whole thing away, do it all over again, find something better. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a whole process.
I mean,
Um,
this is kind of the interesting thing. So of the products we come up with are from like our day-to-day work. We have a problem and we want to solve it. I had tons of like just brushes you can get on Amazon, but the bristles were all too thick and they were scratching the nozzle tip and things like that. So
mhm.
um, I thought, okay, let's get brushes with finer bristles that are more gentle to the nozzle tip. Um, these deburring tools that you usually get with all of the kits, they always come with like the really thick blades that are meant for deburring metal water pipes, or I don't know, but not small plastic parts. So I said, okay, I know that like small tips exist on the market. So we sourced small tips. We also I think we are the first ones that sourced the same small and sharp tips for left-handed people.
Oh, no
Um,
kidding.
s- yeah, this and
Hey.
it was crazy how many emails that I got from people telling me, "Hey, it's great that you're kind of also supplying to the lefty market because there wasn't any place where
I didn't even
we
know there was
could
such a
get
thing.
these before."
Right.
And this is one of the things that I enjoy with, I mean, the background that we now have. If we have an interesting idea, we have certain suppliers we know that work, and we also have a bit of a quality control approach where you say, okay, let's source a couple of samples. If they're okay, source the parts. Check if they are of similar quality as the samples, and then get them out to our customers. And we learned a ton of things along the way that suppliers are not always responsible, and especially if you're asking for lower prices, yeah, you get lower prices, but also that usually goes along with lower quality. So
Yes.
you really need to check things, and this could also like kill a small store if you bought a huge ton of supplies and they don't meet your quality. Either you throw them away and get bankrupt, or you sell them and then have customers that are unhappy. And since, I mean, I have a responsibility, I have a brand where I want to make sure that if somebody is buying something on our store, they should be happy. I also need to make sure that the quality is okay and they get what they're expecting. And yeah, we started small, we grew really naturally, and I mean, with more products also usually comes more revenue, and with also new ideas and the team growing, we are able to supply more and more in the future. And of course, we also take a look at the market and see if there's something changing, if there's something interesting coming up, and try to see if we can make something for that. Because in the end, as I said, it's diversification for myself. Um, one of the reasons why I was able to go full time is because I have a bit of revenue also coming in from our online shop business, our product
Yeah.
business. And if that would not be there, I might have continued working in my normal job.
Yeah. And it's you know, it's one of those things you have a limited amount of time to invest, and you know, if that was the case, I'm guessing you wouldn't be where you are, especially you have
Yeah,
a family. That's also time, right?
yeah.
The investing. That's incredible. I congratulations. It sounds like you said you're moving into a new warehouse.
Yeah, so I had my own studio, I think for the last 4 years, but I was in there by myself for like 2.5 years, and I don't really enjoy just working by myself. Even though I'm not an extroverted person, I enjoy being in company of like-minded people, which might also have been one of the reasons why I still had a normal job. Because when I was at my job, I had these like-minded people, but for my YouTube business, it just wasn't there. But then I decided, okay, we had another daughter. Okay, I can't work in my normal job and do YouTube at the same time and have two kids at home.
Yes.
I need to just focus on one thing. So I said, okay, screw this. I gonna do YouTube now full time. And kind of coincidentally at that time, two other German YouTube creators, which live like very close by, they said, okay, they're also looking for a creator space, like their own studio. And we found something which is just like 5 minutes with the car away from my home, but it was like kind of an old industrial building, and we spent, I think, almost four months renovating everything, putting 3 studios in there, having we have a shared office, we have a kitchen where we can have lunch together and things like that. So that definitely cost a ton of time, but now I can get there in the morning. Robin and Marius are usually there, and we do our own stuff. But if we have a problem, we have somebody else to talk to. We
You
can
guys can help each other
share.
out.
Yeah, exactly. And Marius is doing woodworking, metalworking, he's designing machines and building them. So I have all of the welding, metal, and wood fabrication stuff in one shop. And Robin is a software engineer by trade, but he also does a lot of electronics design and also a bit of 3D printing. So we have like the 3D printing guy there. We have the electronics and software guy in there. We have the woodworking and metal guy in there,
Awesome.
which also means we have all of the machines that are basically
Yeah,
needed
that's
for
awesome.
every project, which is amazing. And I really enjoy being there. And I think that the company of all of them is beneficial to each of us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we had Zombie Hedgehog asked if you plan on focusing on material device testing or any new 3D printing technologies. And I did want to point out because when I was looking at some of your earlier videos, I think your third video was something like the strength testing of candy. You didn't do so well, but imagine, I mean, you mentioned that you had built this tool, and I can just imagine you're like, what else can I do with this tool that would be kind of fun? And I
Yeah.
assume that's what it is, but obviously material testing, even if it's not 3D printing, is something you've done.
Yeah. This is one of the things that I also already mentioned earlier. Sometimes I would like to do more material testing, but I mean, if it's not like a really specific interesting material, the video doesn't usually perform that well, which is kind of a pity.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I would purely do it, it would get repetitive, and I don't enjoy doing repetitive stuff. So, yeah, definitely, there is more material testing. I really want to go into creep testing. I have a wear testing machine now where I do want to do wear testing of different nozzles, where I want to do wear testing of different
Cool.
materials. I have some really interesting materials I want to test. There's still the polymer, this like plastic with the strength of aluminum material,
Mm,
but that is very challenging to print. It's still on my list. I just didn't got to that. The those core materials have been becoming more and more popular, where you,
yeah.
for example, have like this core of carbon fiber, but just the nylon on the outside.
Yep.
So layer adhesion might be a bit better, and it's not as rough in the end. Um, there are a ton of opportunities, but in the end, I can only do so much. And as I said, unfortunately, sometimes I need to decide also which might be a topic that might cater to, I wouldn't say the widest audience, but to most of my like usual viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Have you
I mean,
seen have you seen your audience change at all? Like with the change in I guess the 3D printing user dynamic?
it's I mean I think it's kind of hard to say if my audience changed. I am quite sure that there is a part of my core audience who initially enjoyed the material test. They aren't as happy anymore that I don't know, UV print
Okay.
on
Yeah.
print sheets. And
That was the coolest one. I'm sorry. That I mean, not the coolest one. That was a cool one. I liked it.
But in the end, you can't make it right to everyone. That's kind of the
Yeah.
thing. And I think it's also the wrong thing to not adjust to time and to the market, because this will, in my opinion, lead to failure. Because there might only be a certain amount of audience that might be interesting. It's okay if this is just like a fun hobby project for you, but if it is your business, it's not working out. And I know that many are upset that I don't do that typical stuff anymore, but there are a ton of other channels these days that do material testing. I'm not always super happy what they do and how they do it, because I mean, many of them, they might not have this mechanical engineering or materials background that I was looking when I started doing that. But still, there are some other channels that do a ton of material testing. And yeah, I try to find the things that others might not do yet, or where I have a different opinion on, and things like that. And I think, as I said, wear testing, like very specific materials, just how to choose the right material for a certain application is really interesting. And I mean, currently I'm in the studio making my own new filament and just trying that out and see if that works. I always need to do something that sparks passion in me. If something is boring and repetitive, I'm not good at it, and this will, over a short amount of time, lead to burnout for myself. So I'm quite happy that like every other week I can find a new topic I'm passionate about and really dive into that. And after 2 weeks, be done with it and do something totally different. And for example, material making is currently something that I really enjoy again.
What are you using to make the material, if you don't mind me asking?
So I have two machines in my office. I have a 3Devo, which is a professional machine
Yeah.
from, I think, a Dutch company, who does like lab scale extrusion equipment. But the
It's
one
still,
I'm
it's still like the contained unit, right?
Yeah, very
Yeah.
contained unit. But it is more in the professional space. I think the machine is 5 to 10 grand, something like that.
Yeah.
The machine I enjoy way more using is the ArtMe 3D.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's a
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
The
machine by a
European
guy made in
company.
Germany,
Yeah.
and the results, the material results I get out of that machine are so impressive. I just like I think at the beginning of this week I did a ton of like reground material, which is 4 or 5 years old. And I got beautiful, really well looking and well working material out of it. Currently, I incorporate like high amounts of natural fibers into PLA, and just the results that I'm getting, they are so impressive, and it just makes me happy if if I see that machine working. So yeah, the Artme 3D is the one I'm really happy with, and it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles with like material diameter sensor and closed loop feedback and things like that. But it works. But it works. That's the thing.
I I just shared the link on the YouTube channel. Yeah, I reached out and talked to David
David,
Pfeiffer.
yeah.
Yeah, last year. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
super cool machine. Um, check it out. I think they only sell direct currently. It sounds like he's got a lot on his plate, but I've heard good things about it. And yeah,
Yeah.
so that's good vote of confidence.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Jeremy asked if you're going to be interested in doing any testing of like lubricants or grease for 3D printers or wear testing. Um,
Ah,
I know that particularly with a lot of these new printers, Alan mentioned the Cheedy, the Bamboo. I mean, I think all of the main manufacturers have started to do a pretty good job of getting those appliance printers ready, but like where you just start printing, but in 6 months or so, some of them start showing their, hey, you didn't do your regular maintenance, kind of things. And I know at least in the our space, the prosumer Voron type community, there's always a big discussion as far as like what kind of grease and lubricants are best and at what temperatures,
yeah.
is one just junk? I don't know. Have you thought about doing any of that kind of stuff?
I have definitely thought about that, but as you just said, it's almost a religious thing at some point. Um, One of the channels I really like to watch is a guy called Project Farm, and he did, especially a couple of years ago, tons of like oil testing where you have where he tested the lubricity and wear behavior of different motor oils and things like that. And I really like the approach, but it's, I mean, not fully scientific, and especially with things like lubricant testing and things like that. I think without the proper lab equipment, it's really hard to get a proper answer out of that.
Is it one of those
And
things like you could plan now, but you have to use it
uh,
continuously for like 2 years to
yeah, exactly,
before you can
exactly.
actually do a video?
Yeah, exactly. And then you need to do lab tests and things like that. Maybe so. I mean, there are tons of, if you go on, if you ask Highwind or any of the rail suppliers, they will tell you which is the proper grease that should go into there. I think with just research, you could basically gather a ton of data which should be the right grease or the right oil for a certain application. But then you again have this religion, but I use this lithium grease and it has been working great for me for the last 6 years. And how do you argue against that? Of course I could make tests, but then of course there are the religious guys, but it had been working great for me for like forever. Then you have the guys who maybe do that for a living and say, but this wasn't the right test for especially that thing, and you didn't use the right speeds and the right temperature and the right pressures and yada yada yada. This is a really complex project. I am scared to dive into, especially if I want to try to make like a video every 2 week. This sounds to me like something you could do, but you would need to spend like half a year something like that on proper
Yeah.
testing, and especially on endurance testing, because if you have like wear behavior and things like that, it's not something that shows after like 2 days in action. And if it shows after 2 days in action, the loads you used were probably like way too high compared to what you have in the 3D printer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Jeremy and Keela, I'm gonna stop talking because I have a tendency to just keep asking questions the entire time. Or Alan, you guys have anything that you guys want to ask?
Well, you hit the majority of questions that I had.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of them has been answered. The question I had a couple, but they've been already answered.
So Stefan, well then I'll jump in. If you guys think of anything, just blurt it out, interrupt me. I will say one question that we always ask, and usually Alan's the one that asks it because I jump right into like 3D printing and like all your stuff. But we usually it's always interesting to find out if you have any other sort of hobbies that are not in the sort of making space. Do you do anything else?
I mean, these days I have a family, which kind of limits the amount of
That a
hobbies
parks in?
that I still have. If you are, and that's kind of a pity if you're a content creator, because you always think about, if you're doing something, how can I make content out of that? But before I got into 3D printing and content creation, I think I was like climbing 3, 4, 5 days a week. So
Oh
this was
wow.
something that I really enjoyed doing. I still like cycle a lot. Um, I mean, currently I work a lot in the garden. I usually have these obsessions, usually for like half a year or something. Like currently, my obsession is making pizza.
Oh nice. Do you have a pizza oven?
Yes, I have a pizza
Nice.
oven.
so
So just
you work in the garden. We do a garden all the time too. But you don't want to get a farm bot,
I thought about that, to be honest. So
huh?
this fall, I was really obsessed with getting out all of the weeds out of my garden without using any chemicals. So I thought, okay,
Yeah.
we have this AI thing these days. I have lasers. Can I
Yeah.
maybe strap a camera and a laser to a gantry that
Um,
like drives over my lawn and kills all of the weeds?
yeah.
Didn't get to that yet.
How big is your
But
garden?
it's, I mean, US for the US, it's very small. It is, I think our garden is not even 2,000 square feet. That's a
Okay.
pretty small garden, but it's for
It's
German standards,
bigger than
it's
mine.
sizable. Yeah.
I
But
don't have
probably
one.
depends where you're living.
I have a brown thumb.
Mine's probably half that size.
Our issue is deer.
Yeah, we
Deer
got
keep
deer
our
around here
garden, eat it.
that
Yeah.
yeah, we're battling right
Well,
now.
So Stefan, you mentioned that, it's hard to have other things when you're a content creator, you always think about how to make content. So that kind of begs the question, are you going to do something about your pizza oven or like making pizza that is somewhat related? Are you going
Yeah,
to
so
like soup up your pizza oven and like tell us how to
yeah.
make the scientifically best pizza you can ever make?
Oh,
So I
yes.
mean, there's a reason why the channel is called CNC Kitchen. But getting back to the pizza oven, of course, that would make sense because then it makes it like a tax deductible. I
There you
actually
go.
I actually filmed a short video on Friday about how pizza is made in the CNC Kitchen studios. Didn't
Oh,
finish that
cool.
unfortunately, but might be out next week.
Okay, cool.
Um, but so one of the big hobbies that I have, I like to eat and I like to cook. I maybe don't
Okay.
look as if I like to eat a lot, but I really enjoy eating. And at the time when I started my YouTube channel, we did a lot of, would call it kind of scientific cooking. So we put like thermocouples into meat, into our brisket, and looked at the temperature curves when the meat was heating up, and at what point the proteins degenerated and stuff like that. So I always wanted to kind of mix engineering and cooking on my channel. But I noticed you kind of need to focus on one audience. And I also noticed, okay, I don't have time for both things. And 3D printing seemed to work very well at that point. When I initially did live streams, I always usually cooked a steak on a Prusa behind me and had that at the end of the stream. I really want to get back to that. Maybe now with my pizza oven, just like have a
I
2 hour
don't
live
think
stream.
it'd have to be a very short stream.
I
45
mean,
seconds, I'm out.
I mean, the thing is, so for the last couple of weeks, we always had like pizza on Friday, and I prepare the dough usually like 2, 3 days before, have it in the fridge.
Yeah, to let it rise.
But in order to have it properly raise, I usually put it on my bamboo H2D, set the heated bed to 35 degrees Celsius, and then after like 3 hours, you have like a perfectly risen dough.
Oh, it's interesting. I can tell my wife that. She's
Yeah.
always complaining about the yeast that we have in the US and like the dough never rises.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, so this is still like one of the connections I have to cooking, and sometimes I would love to go back. But as I said, I can't do everything at the same time. But maybe I have the chance again to do a couple of more live streams and just to just do a bit of show cooking on these streams, because this isn't
That'd be
like
cool.
the polished content that I do, and it might be one of the unique things that people might connect to the channel. Just maybe make the streams a bit more fun.
That'd be awesome. Uh, what do you put
Fun.
on your pizza? If you have like your go-to.
Oh, I hope we don't have any Italians here on the live
I
stream.
won't tell my
So
wife.
so we make Neapolitan pizza, and my daughter, she enjoys pineapple. So today we had a pineapple pizza. I'm sorry. But
I'm not one of those anti-pineapple pizza. I'm
yeah,
down.
I enjoy the mix of sweet, sour, and savory. I think it is a nice combination. So I also enjoy it. But otherwise, usually ham and mushrooms, sometimes a bit of sausage. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not too bad. For
Yeah, I
anybody that
do
has
that.
not gone to Italy, I don't know if it's the same in Germany, but they do have a pizza called American pizza, and it is Wurzel and French fries on top of the pizza. And actually, apparently, it's like kind of popular, and like I don't know, my wife actually says it's good. I refuse. I'm like, that is not a pizza that we actually have. I'm a little offended.
I refuse.
But
If you
yeah,
refuse, I mean, yeah, you're pretty, I've seen you eat, multiple things, so you refusing that
I'm
says something.
adventurous. I mean, if someone put it in my face, I would eat it, but I'm not ordering that. That's again, that's offensive.
So one of the offensive things, which turns out to be really good in the end, we have in Germany, we have like on every corner of the street, there is a kebab place, a
Mhm.
döner place, as we call it. And they usually have like kebab pizzas, which is pizza dough with tomatoes, um, cheese, and then kebab meat, usually onions and mushrooms, and that
Hmm.
combination is
I actually
amazing.
bet you that would be good because the kebab
Oh,
meat's like a little salty too,
oh
right? And like,
yes, it's
oh,
amazing. This is one of like especially if you're hungover or something like that, it's like the perfect combination.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one
Yeah,
of the
we
passions that I
actually,
have. So since we had our second daughter, I try to focus a bit more on the family, and that also means taking a bit more time for myself. And one of the things that I always like to do at home, and I haven't been doing for the last 6 years, is cooking. So I got more back to cooking, and as I said, the current obsession is making the perfect Neapolitan pizza.
I can never get the pizza. I get one because the problem is for our oven and Neapolitan pizzas, right, really thin. So I got to make usually two pizzas for our
Yeah,
family. And I feel like I can always get the first one all right, and then the second one I can never like it comes apart in pieces. Like I never actually get it like off in one piece, and anything that came on top as I was trying to separate it like just all fell on
yeah.
the stove. I have not mastered the pizza oven.
I have been obsessed. So, like, my YouTube front page is currently, I think, half is technic stuff, but the other half is just baking pizza and making dough.
That's
So
awesome.
I
You guys
spent
are
way too
seriously
much
making
time
me hungry with
on
all this
finding out
pizza
how to make
talk.
a, yeah.
It's a good skill. I mean, and the thing is, like on those, if you're doing Neapolitan, I mean, I don't know how yours, but we do like it's like 750 degrees or
Yeah,
something, so Fahrenheit.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, it cooks 45 seconds or so, and
yeah,
like it's done.
yeah,
60 seconds. So I
yeah.
mean, it's quick once you put together.
Yeah, so I just made pizza for my in-laws before we started the stream.
Oh,
Hmm.
And so like we were 6 people. I made 4 pizzas. It's just like making one
nice.
pizza, get out in the garden, have one, get back in again, and then 5 minutes later, have a second one there. And it's kind of chill. And when they are when they are fresh out of the oven, it's just something
Good.
different than
So good.
if you get them delivered and they're already like half an hour old, soggy.
Yeah,
Uh, it's 8 p.m. here. I have not had my dinner yet. I am hungry. This just
I'm the
sounds pretty
same.
good.
Yeah.
This is
And we
breakfast.
talked
Yeah.
about warons with a heart. If you buy a
Hmm.
pizza, it doesn't have a heart. If you make it and it's good, it's especially good because you made it and you put a ton of heart in that, so it tastes like double as good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
my two studio colleagues, they're also really happy that we have Pizza Friday now in the studio because they don't have to bring anything along and we have good pizza.
do you bring your oven to the studio and you just cook it there?
So I actually bought it for the studio because we don't
Oh,
have a
nice.
ton of space at home to put it. So it's usually in the studio and just like yesterday, I brought it back home because I said, okay, let's have pizza on Sunday with the in-laws. But tomorrow morning,
Perfect.
it's going back to the studio because we have a ton of space there.
That's awesome. That's sweet. Um, what's your favorite? I mean, obviously, I mean, you have hundreds of videos. What's the favorite project you've done? Like, where you just were doing, you're like, this was fun while I was doing it. It was fun talking about it. Like, have you had any of those?
I mean, I did a ton of fun projects. I would rather say which is the one I'm most proud of.
Okay. What's the one you're
Fun,
most proud of?
fun. As I said, I really enjoy filament making, especially now out of weird stuff, which is kind of nice. Um, the one I'm kind of most proud about, and the sad thing is that sometimes
Hmm.
like these passion projects, they don't perform as well as you wished. But I think 3 years ago, I made a digital egg drop egg, where I put a ton of electronics into a 3D printed egg, and you can do the egg drop challenge, but with a digital egg that gives you real
Like,
acceleration and deceleration results once you throw out of your stuff out of the window. And I'm kind of upset that it's the video didn't perform as well, and I never really got back to it and made a version 2 out of it because like the first one was really like jerry-rigged, but I think it could be a really nice STEM project
Yeah,
to
for kids.
don't
That's
have
what
this
I consider a
binary
project.
answer. You do the egg drop test at school, and you can either have the egg broken or the egg is still in good condition. But if you have like 10 teams and five of the eggs break and five of the eggs survive, who is the winner in the end? And there can always be just one winner. I'm competitive in that regard. So this digital egg gave me like proper scientific numbers, how the deceleration profiles and acceleration profiles were, and I could really say, okay, this was the smoothest impact of them all. So you're the winner.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I have
I really
you
want to go back to that, especially now with like Robin with now a software and electronics guy having in the studio. We even have a pick and place machine in the
oh
studio,
cool.
so I could even manufacture proper, like really small SMD component PCBs to put them into eggs and make the smartest egg on the planet.
That's awesome. Are your kids are any of them school age?
No, so Emmy is turning 5 in 3 weeks,
Okay.
and then Ida is eight months old, so
Okay.
no school age
So
yet.
you don't
Kindergarten.
know if they have the bug for anything that you do.
Well, at least not for the little one because she doesn't talk too much yet. But Emmy, she likes to make stuff. I'm kind of happy about that. Especially when she
Nice.
was young, she preferred building Legos than playing with dolls. I'm kind of happy
Oh
about
yeah,
that.
nice. Nice.
And this is something I'm really jealous about these days. We have a ton of STEM education at school now. So they have 3D
Yeah.
printers at school. They have
Yeah.
electronics
Paper
classes. They have
labs.
programming
Yeah.
classes. So even if I think not everyone appreciates that, if someone has the passion to make something by themselves, they get the opportunity these days. And I'm looking forward to see
Yeah.
if she can also find a passion in that regard. She enjoys seeing the 3D printer running. She enjoys also maybe the Flexi Dragon or the Banshee boat
Yeah.
from time to time.
Sure.
But usually when she's outside, she's building stuff, she's building boats, so she might have a bit of that maker gene in her.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's hope. Um, Someone's asking if you didn't have to consider sort of your audience and how successful a video is going to be. Is there any project that you'd have liked to do for a longer time, or you would have liked to do instead?
Ah, yeah, as I said, I would like to do more filament testing, to be
Okay,
honest,
so you
or
really
just
do like that.
yeah, I mean, not filament testing, but just yeah, material testing and doing a bit more education in the direction of how to make parts that perform in a way you expected. Because I think this can sometimes become the point where people get upset by the technology if they print something out, it doesn't work, it breaks, and they just say, okay, the technology is not working. And it's not that they chose the wrong parameters or the wrong materials. So I would like to do more education in that direction. And as I said, just do a bit more material testing. And sometimes it's working. You just, for example, I don't know, like a year ago or something like that, I tested different glow in the dark filaments. And instead
Mm.
of saying, okay, I used Amolen blue glow in the dark filament and just tested one, I said, okay, let's compare different ones and see how long they glow and what the differences in pigments is and how the nozzle wear. And if you approach a topic a little bit different, you can very easily cater to a wider audience, but still talk about the technical stuff that's interesting. So my goal when I make videos is always to make it interesting for someone who might have heard of additive manufacturing or 3D printing, might be maybe a bit of tech savvy, but isn't like a 3D printing nerd. Um, they enjoy watching it. They enjoy maybe seeing how I approach something, but at some point it might get a bit too technical. But at that point, others that do have that background might be satisfied because I also talk about the in-depth stuff.
Yeah.
And in the end, I hope that everyone always learns something because I think watching videos that just kill time is a waste of time.
Yep.
And I hope with the videos that I do, I can at least teach my viewers something that they finish a video and say, okay, I wasn't aware of that before. But now I have that knowledge to maybe apply that to my own problems. Because I'm not the best designer. I'm not the best artist. I know that there are way better people. They're way better guys doing better parts than I do. But I can talk about specific things, for example, specific settings in a slice or specific algorithms or specific material properties that they might not know, but they can apply that to their own problem in order to make parts in the end or to make a product that performs better than it would have been before.
Yeah. So I was seeing if anybody else has here. I think definitely the material question, it's something that a lot of people struggle with. It's in the shop. It's probably one of our most uh, sort of popular general questions is what I have this project in mind. What should I be using? We
Yeah.
don't usually get into details as far as like considerations, as far as like yeah, I mean, what sort of, I don't know, some of the new like, scarf and stuff like that, the
Yeah.
seam infill and things like we don't get into that detail, but having those questions answered, I mean, it certainly is beneficial.
I mean,
Um,
these days it has been becoming so easy to even work with more sophisticated
oh
material.
yeah,
When you had your Ender 3, of course, you printed PLA because it works well. And PLA in general, if you don't look at the temperature aspect, it's a great material. It's super
strong.
strong, it's super
Yeah,
stiff. Um, but when it becomes hot, it's not as good anymore. But these days, especially with enclosed 3D printers, printing an ABS, an ASA, I really enjoy, for example, Prusa's PC blend for any like
yeah,
functional parts. It has been becoming so easy that maybe you sometimes need to show them, okay, there's something different than PLA, but what are the applications to not use PLA? I still use 90% PLA for my parts, but there are certain applications where I say, okay, now a TPU is better, now a PETG might be better, now I print that part into ABS, and I think, and this is something I should definitely do, is give a bit more guidance. What could be the aspects to choose another material, and
yeah.
in which cases PLA might be totally sufficient.
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned before, as far as one of the videos that you've kind of contemplated was looking at things like heat creep and stuff like that that you would have for various filaments. For me, watching content, like I don't know if unless it got into some details that I cannot find from a data sheet, because I can pull up a sheet that's going to give me, the basic HGT. I can look at all the different things. I'll get tensile strength, whether or not they're accurate or real. I mean, they'll be in the ballpark. Uh, it's the things that are not on there that are the considerations that I think people just don't anticipate are
Yeah.
the reasons why I would watch that video because I limited time. I've got 10 other things that I'm behind on that I should be doing with my time. When I sit back, I still want to feel like I'm getting value from it. And so those are the things that totally, I think, you bring, I mean, you generally bring, I mean, like you said, you want people to learn. But those ideas and stuff like that, at least for me, would be a major improvement for things like, um, materials testing or
I
materials.
wish that we had filaments in the first place in our online shop, but then to have a kind of a decision tree tool on there where you can say,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
let's go through the, I don't know, 5 or 10 questions where you could just say, okay, yes, no, high, low, something like that. And in the end, it spits out a set of materials that might be good for the application you're looking for. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe this is something we might do in the future because I can take my knowledge from just the tests that I do and just the background that I have and also kind of use it for our online business that the USP in our shop could be if you go there, you can go through the selection tool and it gives you a material that might be good for your application. And I think this something like this is kind of important in this competitive world we live these days. How can you give your customers this USP? And I think education is
Yeah.
definitely one thing that helps in that regard because there's always, like almost always, a cheaper option available somewhere on Amazon or I don't know, AliExpress. So trying to give customers a reason to shop on your store instead of buying somewhere cheap is something that you need to look for. And sometimes it can just be a connection with a brand. It can be trust in a brand, but sometimes it could also be these nice little things that just help make life easier and might save you a bit of hassle in the end.
Yeah. No, totally. Um, one of the things that I've seen a lot of your videos is you kind of go to the next step or the next level deeper down. So, and I was thinking of a help ticket that we got the other day. For a material, I think they printed something, if I remember right, it was out of ABS or ASA, because they were putting in the car. Good idea. Like that's
Mhm.
would be the general first level recommendation. If you don't do PLA or something like that, if there's going to be any strain on it, especially do something like ASA. A lot of your car parts are made out of ABS already. But had some issues. And I'm looking at pictures and I can see, okay, well, there's a heat set, there's a screw that looks like it's sort of out exposed, under your windshield and things like that, where, it's like there's probably another step deeper down. And my current suspicion is that those metal parts are absorbing a lot of solar radiation that is actually quite a bit hotter than what you anticipated would be like just the temperature in your car. I mean, think about when you touch your seatbelt, right? Like in a
Yeah.
hot day, like that burns you. So it's like there's that extra level of like, well, consider what else or how you're actually using this, what it's interacting with. It probably needs to be something that's even greater than what you anticipated. And it seems like your videos do that kind of work or legwork, where I feel like a lot of videos kind of stop at that step one. That's not a question. I just
Yeah.
that's an observation.
I mean, that's
Um,
that's the learning aspect that I said. It's I try to really get people out of a video and say, okay, now I learned that this thing could happen and I didn't anticipate that before.
somebody asked if you could talk a little bit about the 3D Academy.
Yeah, I mean, this is also like a controversial topic because especially in 3D printing community, having a paywall subscription for additional content is usually not how do you say properly? People don't like that.
Yeah.
But as I said, I grew up with learning courses on DVD, and I always enjoy having, if I want to learn something, have everything in place, have chapters where I can go through and learn everything step by step. And like the 3D Printing Academy, this is a school community in German, is a place where if somebody buys his first 3D printer or her first 3D printer, they can get there. They have tutorials for Orca Slicer, Bamboo Studio, Prusa Slicer, I think even Cure on there. You have a bit of material knowledge. There are courses on where to find your models and things like that. You can learn CAD in there. You can learn Blender. A ton of stuff, which is just always it's all in one place. Probably you could find many of these things also on YouTube as well, but it's just harder to find. And then you have a bit right here and a bit right there. We have everything curated in one place. And then there's the other aspect with the community, which is a bit of a forum where you can ask questions. I have this printing problem. And we and also the community tries to answer that. And people really enjoy being there. They enjoy the courses that we have because they can really learn something and get in their hobby to a next level. And then also have the community aspect where you have all of these like-minded people. And if you have a question, there are usually get like 10 questions within a couple of 10 answers within a couple of minutes in order to solve your problem. And since we don't really charge too much for that community, I did not feel bad putting that behind the paywall, especially with all of the content we have in there, because like part of the courses we have in there were previously sold for, I don't know, I think even the Fusion 360 course was $500 just all alone, and now you can have a subscription for a month to the Fusion 360 course and get that for $8 or something like that. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'll
think
have
it's
to
really
check that
nice, and people enjoy that, and I would love to have kind of something similar like that in English, but it's a tremendous amount of work to get that done. And the guy I'm working with, he does most of the management there. He already did specific courses already before, so it's also kind of nice collaboration there.
Okay. And is this 3dacademy.eu?
It's three D 3D Druckakademie 3D.
Okay.
I don't know, .de, sorry.
No worries.
What's
It's
the best way to support your channel? Someone asked.
it's kind of hard these days. Of course, the best way to support the channel is just send me money. Um, of course, there are several ways to do that. There's Patreon, there's YouTube memberships, but as I said, since our online shop has been becoming a very good way of diversification, if people want to get something back for their support, just instead of buying your heatset inserts or tools on Amazon or AliExpress, you usually get the same stuff from our online shop at kind of a similar price. Even orders to the US usually ship within a week with tracking and everything. And this just helps us grow that part of the business and also really supports the channel. But I, of course, don't complain if somebody becomes like a Patreon member or something like that. But I mean, with Patreon and memberships, you don't have this like physical feedback. You don't directly get something for the support. You might have this kind of warm feeling in your heart. But if you buy, we don't even have like a ton of merch. I don't even know if we have merch at the moment. But with the online shop, buy headset inserts.
Yeah.
I get a small cut of that, and the rest goes into the business. And you get great headset inserts, which are cadmium and lead free.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing you buy from the store. I mean, that's a direct sort of contribution. There's
Yeah,
some euros that are directly going to sort of benefit you and your
yeah,
partner. I'm assuming the work that I'm doing of watching your videos, there's some incremental benefit that you're getting, but it's nowhere sort of, and that marginal benefit is not, I mean, it's fractions of a penny. Um, it's a different thing, I assume. How's the, someone asked a while ago, I wasn't sure if I wanted to ask it. Um, you know, I assume sort of your YouTube is the biggest part of your brand. But am I wrong? Is the store just doing, is it taking off? And that's
You mean in
where
terms of income?
Stefan's, yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of income, YouTube, I am in the beneficial position that I have still very well performing videos from the last several years, some really nice evergreen
Oh,
videos.
yeah. Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
if I look at my revenue share, for example, for last year, I think 30% of the income is YouTube ad revenue. Another around 30% is our online shop. And then there is like 15% brand deals, 20% brand deals, something like that. Then there's
Okay.
affiliate, a
That's a
bit of
good,
Patreon.
it's a good, you said diversification. I mean, you do
Yeah,
have a fairly
exactly.
equal mix there.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I think that's especially dangerous for somebody who is starting in content creation, that they only have like this one source of income, for example, YouTube ad revenue, and
Yeah.
that might be gone either tomorrow because YouTube is changing a policy, or you have a couple of very well performing videos and then at some point, yeah, you don't get any views anymore. With Patreon, brand sponsorships and things like that, especially now with the online store, it's nice to have this diversification, especially like during summer or something like that, because like the one thing, views are currently down, the shop is also currently down, but some of the bills from brand sponsorships are currently paid, so the revenue over the years
Yeah.
stays kind of on the same level.
That's awesome. That's good. Um, yeah, on the YouTube thing, I mean, our channel is nowhere near the size of yours. Alan does a fantastic job though on his content. But I mean, one thing I've noticed in the past few months is new charges too. Like we do have some ad revenue or whatever that come through. But now because we post links to our store or whatever, now we're paying YouTube for commissions on the clicks or whatever, the sales
Mhm.
from the store. Like it's a constant change. I don't know since you have your store if you've seen that too. But it's a thing. Um, Someone was asking, this could be a very loaded question, so feel free and tackle it as you wish. Uh, but the question is sort of open source versus this more protected IP approach that we're starting to see changes. And I'll preface with, I think it was about a year ago, and it actually kind of shocked me a little bit. I've had Prushas. I do like the company. I think they've made fantastic machines. Was definitely a supporter. Um, but even them about a year ago, I think they had a post where they're like, we're gonna have to sort of rethink our IP position, and they've been one of the major open source contributors to 3D printing in the consumer side. E3D around the same time did something similar, and I think they're all sort of in line with uh, sort of responding to changes in the market with bamboo and things like that. Bondtech's done similar things. They're all sort of changing their approach. What are your thoughts on sort of that whole dynamic?
I mean, I'm a big supporter of open source, but I think it has been becoming really hard to have an open source business model with your company. We've seen that with Prusha. It has been working for many years well for them, but if it's kind of an upsetting feeling if you put a ton of energy, money, and effort into developing something, and 2 weeks later you have the same product popping up on AliExpress for like a tenth of the price. Um, you've seen that with Bondtech and the CHT nozzles.
Mhm.
How I mean, the funny thing there is that Bondtech now uses kind of same inserts as the cheap AliExpress knockoffs used initially for their nozzles in now their, I think, hardened steel ones. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the end, especially if you have like Western companies, I think it's very hard to be competitive on the market if you don't protect your development in some way. And we have seen the transition with Prusa, we've seen the transition with Bontech, we have seen it with Ultimaker and things like that. With some things, they can't really get out of open source anymore with Prusa Slicer, Bamboo Studio and whatnot. But for everything else, I mean, you still find the printed parts from Prusa that are available on printables, but no CAD, no electronics, no schematics, soft. I think this firmware is still open source, but anything else, because otherwise, if they wouldn't protect themselves, they would have these knockoffs landing there, destroying their business model, and they would be out of business at some point. I think 10 years ago that was still working because especially Prusa, who really marketed the open source nature of that project, they were still in the position where they knew, yeah, AliExpress, they can rip us off, but it's actually benefiting us because people might buy a clone and realize it's not working as well as the genuine thing. And so they buy cheap there and then come to a Prusa. And in the beginning, they might have never been coming to that to 3D printing in the first place. But these days, it's different because, I mean, Bamboo Lab gave the whole 3D printing industry a really big kick in the butt that a Chinese company is able to bring something to the market that is just way better than anything else that was available off the shelf. And so, as I said, the Western companies, I think they are not in a position anymore where they can just open source everything. It would be nice, and people could be after that and saying, okay, I mean, Joe, you have tattooed the open hardware logo on your forearm. Why is your stuff not open source anymore? Yes, they could do that, but probably like in 2 years they would run out of business. I mean, probably not Prusa, but many others. And we have seen a drastic change in the 3D printing market. I think over the last 2 years, there have been several companies that went out of business because they have a problem with cheap competition. And in the beginning, it was just cheap competition, but these days the competition is inexpensive, but it's also well working. So,
Yeah, things have
um,
changed.
yeah,
When that, the other story, that was huge news 6 months ago or so, was the Stratasys sort of lawsuit with Bamboo,
yeah,
which I mean is going after things that in the consumer 3D printing space is not new. I mean, Prusa used it. I think my
yeah,
assumption is that they kind of let it go as a sense of it's not really competing with my business.
yeah,
We're not in that space. Obviously, now they were feeling it was the time.
yeah.
Um, what do you have any concerns with that, or do you see that going anywhere? What are your thoughts there?
The lawsuit.
Just general, I mean, as far as these companies
I
that
mean,
have
it's all always
patents.
nice and dandy the if the companies that are ripping off your open source product are not a real competition, might even benefit you in a certain way. But once it gets really competitive, and you just said, okay, Stratasys and Bamboo Lab, I mean, a Prusa machine and a Stratasys machine, they were in kind of different leagues. So they didn't really care. Stratasys didn't really care if maybe something was infringed there. But these days, if you can get machines from Bamboo Lab or many other Chinese companies that are really they're performing well, they can work with materials that weren't possible to work with like 3 years ago on non-Stratasys machines. They feel the pressure. They see that revenue is dropping, and I think at that point they need to act in a way. If if with a lawsuit, if this will lead to something, or if they would just say, okay, we gonna figure out a licensing solution, is the other thing. But I think we will more transition more and more to the market. And in a way, I totally understand it, especially since we also have our own business and we develop simple products, but we still
Yeah.
develop products and still then see them ripped off like 2 months later on AliExpress. But where did I want to go with that? But on the other hand, many of the things that we have achieved, especially with software and firmware on machines, are fully based on the open source community. If I look at the slices we have these days, all of the machines would not be properly usable if everyone would make their own slicer. The reason why, or the Prusa put a ton of money into making Slick or into improving Slick 3R. Brought that to a point where it finally was better than Simplify 3D and all of the other slices on the market. Bamboo Lab took the opportunity, made a nicer graphical user interface. Now everyone is just forking Bamboo Studio or Orca Slicer and just make it in a different color. But one of the reasons why the machines these days work so well is not only because the hardware is good, but also because the software is good. And since this is all based on open source, it's kind of hard to see that sometimes, even in that regard, open source is not. They are not really. My brain is already hurting.
No, it's late for you.
Yeah, it's
It's
late for me.
9:30.
People don't adhere to the license and are not publishing their changes and don't contribute. Why? I don't know. I don't understand why Elegoo and Creality and all of them, why they're just reskinning their own slicer and then
Oh, I
always
hate it.
lagging behind the current version. Why don't they give the money that they put into their own development to Soft Fever and make the main branch better and implement the changes
Yeah.
they would like to have there? Because I mean, that would be the most sensible thing for everyone in the end. But it is how it is. I think it will transition more and more to closed source. I'm kind of happy that a couple of things and a couple of very important things will and should remain open source, and that's Slicer and Clipper. But I mean, in terms of hardware, yeah, I think there will be more and more challenging things. And I talked to, for example, the Prusa guys a couple of weeks ago, and they say, for example, on their MMU, they cannot really improve it in the way they would like to improve it because there are like certain patents on different things that
Mm.
might have been prior art already, but since the patent office didn't find them, they would have to fight that patent in the first place and yada yada yada. So it does complicate developments, and I think this is the thing that in the end hurts everyone again.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah. Sorry
I
for
want to
rambling.
sorry, I want to be respectful of your time. And when we talked before, you were like, yeah, it's late and you've got stuff. Um, we have a couple more questions. I'll get through the
Yeah.
ones that people asked here. One of the things I like to ask is if any questions come through sort of later on. I know you and Alan have been talking. Is it okay if we forward those to you and
Yeah, sure.
you can give them a quick text or whatever? Um, Cool. We also do giveaways. I don't know, Alan, did you ask for trivia? Do we
Did
have
I?
trivia?
No, I think you
S-
didn't.
Oh,
Okay. We typically will do some sort of giveaways. It's things like filament or gift cards, things like that. Um, you don't have to have anything. If you can think of one or two things of just, questions you could ask people they can respond to, That's cool. Again, not required. We can always come up with something too. Um,
I think my brain is hurting at the moment.
you're good. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I'm really
I'll have
sorry there.
no.
It's
We
30
usually reach
degrees in
out.
here.
Oh
Oh,
man.
No worries. I'll just go ahead and ask these questions.
Yeah,
Jeremy
go
and
ahead.
Keela, you're gonna have to come up with a trivia question each. Um,
I
while
actually
we're
have one this time.
Hey, cool. So the first one is just what's your favorite tool in your shop?
My favorite tool in the shop currently is, and I might
Might have been
sound
a
like a
great trivia
shill
question.
here, is my Creality Raptor 3D scanner. I
Oh,
use
cool.
professional 3D scanners for years in our company, and I never found a proper replacement for the professional stuff. But like last year, I got the Raptor scanner, just laser line scanning, and the results are amazing. And I thought I would never say that, but Creality does a pretty good job in software with their scanner.
No,
So
that's
yeah.
awesome. I've heard good things. Um, let's see. We've got someone's asking if you get any sort of commission from those heat set inserts on AliExpress. That I don't know. Do they actually say like CNC Kitchen heat set
No.
tool?
I
Okay.
mean, and this is something I'm also like totally honest. We didn't invent these heat set
You
inserts.
just found a good sale.
Our heat set inserts are also just like in a way catalog parts, but we do the QC on them. We specify a certain material which doesn't contain any lead and cadmium, for example. Yeah, and we source them and we try them. We try to sell them at the same price. You can also get them on Amazon. We are working on making our own designs and our own shape, but we are not there yet. They work really well, and we just appreciate if people buy that stuff instead of other ones on Amazon, for example.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. What do you think about 3D modeling tool that makes holes for FDM printing, like the automatic teardrop shape or sacrificial layers, things like that?
Ooh, that would be really nice. We like recently had a talk about that in the studio because I think with Infusion 360 it's kind of easy to make your own scripts for certain applications, and I sometimes would really like to have that. Maybe there are already like scripts available for things like that, but that would be just another tool in a hand of a 3D part designer, which makes the parts print more efficiently and the parts better in the end. I hope that more CAD tool provider might implement certain things, especially for FDM 3D printing, into their software. Maybe even slicers could do that in the end.
Cool. Um, Virus Vag asked, would you like to see any more hacking and jailbreaking of bamboo printers like the X Plus project? And I'll say, I mean, even BQ or Big Tree Tech has come up with sort
Master
of their
Planet.
things, the Panda Touch and all those other things that they've done.
So what I would really love to see, and of course it's complicated, but it has been 3 years since the X1 was released. I would love to have kind of a replacement main board for the Bambu Lab printers. I don't know if it's
Oh
necessary these days anymore because you have plenty of alternatives that are clipper based and where you can do your own modding. But I really
yeah.
wondered why initially nobody was able to just rip the board out and replace it with basically a custom one that runs Clipper and where you don't have all of this like ecosystem fencing. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. 5 years ago, everyone was buying Ender 3s and then spent half a year just modding the Ender 3 until it worked. I The only mod that I have on my bamboo machine is a kind of refillable charcoal filter in there because otherwise I don't really need mods on that machine. It just works for me.
Yeah.
Of course, you could argue about the firmware changes and everything, but if you want a tool and you don't mind these things, even such a close, especially such a close system, works tremendously well. But using the hardware with your own firmware would be really nice. I don't know if I heard rumors that there might be something for like the X and P series of printers, but I mean, I think we have come to the point where everyone kind of expects an overhaul of these machines at some point
Yeah.
this year. I was kind of already expecting that at the beginning of this year, and then we got the H2D. But yeah,
Yeah, my only real concern, because I mean, yeah, I got the X1 because I just wanted something that worked, and that was
yeah,
the thing. It's like it's just gonna work. Honestly, it's not it hasn't I've had my own issues. It's still a great machine. I still recommend it to people. My concern, which I think something like having your own board would be helpful. Having a third party market for replacement parts and things like that would be helpful. Is that, we've also seen, I mentioned earlier, but we've seen the introduction of end of life dates for products, whether they're flexible, they're going to
yeah,
move, whatever it is. That's not something that when I got into it 10 years ago, I would have ever considered in a consumer space.
no.
Um, so I mean, yeah, I think I agree. I think it'd be awesome if someone could do stuff like that. Um, I'm gonna stop because I can go forever and I've done it before. So trivia. Alan, you said you have one. Um, what should we give away this time? I mean, filament's always popular. Did we get anything else new in the shop this week that would be kind of cool? That's not like $1,000.
Hmm.
Um,
I haven't been there. I've been traveling for the last few weeks, so I don't know if um any new project things other than the robot arm. Um,
ooh,
That's pricey.
I
baby
don't,
belt.
Oh, yeah.
Got the baby belt.
well, I don't know that we're going to give away a printer.
yeah, well, let's start with some filament. And we'll do 2 kilograms. Any ambrosia filament that you would like. And
Well,
Jeremy and Keela will get it sent out to you. Go ahead, Alan.
Boy.
so, West 3D is expanding again. We just got more warehouse space next door. So, my trivia question is, what is our current square footage? And let's say we'll go plus or minus 200 square feet.
A tough one.
We can do this.
I can't remember. Alan, do you know?
I do.
Did Morton get it right?
He did not.
Yeah,
Mm.
we better.
Should need this.
Square footage. I think it's. Do we have a winner out there?
Like the current with the
Someone
expansion or before?
with the expansion, we've got someone who's close. Okay, Northern Tide.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We'll
That's
we'll
close.
we'll call it. So it's almost 5,800 square feet. Your answer of 6,000, we'll take that. But
Who was it that won that?
Northern Tide,
Northern Tide. Okay.
Vitaly, I
And
wish
that
we
is
had 30,000 square feet, but um,
I couldn't afford 30,000 square feet, guys. We don't have that much stuff. That is one nice thing. If you're thinking about starting a 3D printing store, I started in my garage. Most of the things, especially if you're in the DIY space, Probably the things that CNC Kitchen is selling also, they're pretty small. They actually don't take up a lot of space, and the amount of value that you can get in a very small space is very good. My one recommendation, if anyone happens to be doing this, if you're starting, don't make the mistake and start with filament. That's what 90% of the companies do. 90 filament is by far the least value per square meter of anything that you'll have in your store or in your warehouse. Um, that is one of the reasons why we need more square footage, but you can't
Yeah.
do it in your garage.
Yeah.
Cool. For people that are in other non-freedom unit areas, that's about 540 square meters. Um, Cool. So Northern Tide, if you can reach out to info at West 3D, just shoot us your email, say you won that. Look at our website, pick anything a filament, two of them. If you are not in the US and you want something else, we'll probably give you like a gift card or something like that, just in case. Filament's not the unfortunately not the greatest thing to ship. Although we do have some European suppliers, so maybe we can also just ship it direct from Europe. Sweet. Jeremy and Keela, did you come up
I,
with something?
yeah, I got one for you. It's an easy one, and you can
For it.
easily figure it out, but I guess the first person that answers it will win. What was the first video posted on the YouTube for CNC Kitchen? Whoever can beat the
And it
actually
was
mentioned it
mentioned in the
earlier.
script if you were paying attention.
Yeah, it mentioned it in the video
Albe
earlier.
got it. Albe got it.
Ali don't
Silicone
count.
stocks for Purusha.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, Albe, that's another 2 kilograms of filament. Just add
All
it to your
right,
next
Ali.
we'll throw it in there. Um,
Fun
Albe
funny story.
apparently was
Funny
very
story here is I think so the silicone stock video was something really spontaneous and that worked way better than I thought. Or the video performed way better than I thought. The first video that I wanted to do was actually a filament test, and that was my second video on the channel, and I think it performed horribly. And maybe if I would have released that filament test video as my first video, I would have never continued doing anything on YouTube.
Oh wow.
So good
That's a
thing
good
E3D brought out their silicone socks, and I
that's
ordered some
awesome.
and put them on my Prusa Mark II.
That's awesome. Um, let's see. So there was something else I was gonna say. So, yeah, anyway, Albe, reach out. Um, I was gonna say Albe made this really cool. If you guys watch the Death Racer videos from either a Murph or Murph, he made a really cool Viking themed um, ship, and apparently it dominated at Murph.
Definitely
It did
dominated.
have a West 3D
Just a little.
flag. It's Berserker themed, and apparently we're gonna have to find ways to not dominate these Death Racer events.
Yeah.
Um, but
Uh,
it is really cool. Good job, Albe. That was fantastic. That's my favorite event at these shows. Um,
yeah.
I'll do one more. Um, we are uh in that expansion. There are three things. There are a couple things that we are looking at potentially adding to the space. Uh, Two of them are machine related, and one of them is sort of community related. Um, we'll go ahead and just write out what you think they are, and we'll give away, I guess, two things of filament.
A pizza oven and a chef.
No pizza oven, I wish. Um, Hadron, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you. We're not getting a lathe.
Yet.
Mostly uh noise, and there's a jujitsu place like that would be sharing a wall, and I just don't think that'd be very fair. So we won't do that. But we are getting a laser. Two actually. So we'll be able to do some of our own cutting and stuff like that, and some engraving and things. So We are looking at that, which will be really exciting. The other piece here, makerspace, not, I wouldn't call it a makerspace. Um,
Close.
it has nothing to do with jujitsu, not filament recycling, although that would be fantastic. If there was a good way I could figure out how to actually do that. Hadron, I'm going to give it to
Hadron.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I would like to do with this space, one of the companies that actually is going out of business, unfortunately, it's very sad, is Open Builds. But I bought a whole bunch of their tables because they have really cool tables that they that they sold. And I am hoping that we can configure them in a way that will be a really good workspace, that we could potentially host community-based classes, learning how to 3D print or things like that. Um, Building a printer, whatever you have. So that's what we'd like to do. Hadron, you got that. So just again, reach out to info at West 3D. And whoever Hadron got both.
Yeah.
Huh.
Uh,
How about this? Because I feel like Hadron, you still get a win. I'm gonna give it to you for the classroom. I'm gonna
yeah.
let Taco get the laser because technically it was just one of those. So there we go. We have two winners. Morton did not win. Morton's won like every time, I feel like. You were second place there, sir. Um, Anyway, thank you guys for doing the giveaways. It's a lot of fun for me. I hope that's not why you guys hang around here, but I want to thank you. Stefan, my family is officially back and has been in like incredibly quiet. I don't know if you guys heard that when they first came in, but like the kids are on their tablets, they're not screaming at each other. Um, it is probably we're dealing with some very short time here. Um, and I know it's late for you. It's also 30 degrees in your room and you must just be cooked. So I'm gonna call it. Alan always asks one question before we leave, so I'll let you do that, Alan, and then we'll call it. I do want to thank everybody that's on here though, for taking the time out. And again, if there's any questions, please let us know. We'll pass them on to Stefan.
Yeah, you can also
Yeah.
just like put them in the comments once this video is like video on demand, and I can just check in there and answer
Okay.
them.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah.
Even though it's pretty hot in here, I enjoyed the talk, and I'm sorry if I rambled a bit too much from time to time, but it's late.
It was perfect. It was a good mix, and it made again it makes it easier for us if we're not having to like pry you for answers. So thank you. Alan, go ahead and ask
Yeah.
your question.
So yes, thank you for coming on. And the question is, who would you like to see do this live stream?
I mean, he's also in the chat right here. My former intern and now aspiring YouTube creator Jantek.
Okay.
Okay.
He's a really talented guy. I would have really liked to hire him for my business, but he went to university, which is probably the best option.
A good long-term move.
And he started his German channel, I think, years ago, and now also transitioned to English because I think he realized that it's way easier to cater to a larger audience, and he does kind of similar things. But he's a young guy, very passionate. Uh,
Yeah.
I think he would be very happy to join
Okay.
the chat right here.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool.
Sweet. Thanks. We've got that written down. Yontek, you might be getting a message from us. We try to keep a good list going and make sure that we've got these scheduled out. So we may be reaching out very soon. All right, guys.
Thanks.
Again, thank you. And yeah, we'll see you around next time. Hopefully, sometime in July.
Yep. All
Hey,
right.
Stefan.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you so much.
care.
Yeah, I'm rolling post show, so we're clear.